Both reach healthcare providers in Jacksonville and Northeast Florida, providing opportunities for local businesses to reach these professionals. Info at heritagepublishinginc.com. The North Florida TPO is dedicated to transportation planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, resilient, and connected region. More information available at northfloridatpo.com. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjax.com.
This is WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. Up next, national and local news from NPR and the WJCT News team.
Good morning, I'm Ann Schindler, and on today's First Coast Connect, it's the biggest stories of the week. A new report reveals which officials are requesting the most comp tickets to city venues. Health officials protest cuts to health care spending. Concerns about possible sunshine law violations continue after more reports of council communications. The city's finance chair pays $70,000 in back taxes, and lawmakers want to hire their own lawyer. We'll talk about all that and more with our panel of journalists on our Friday Week in Review. Later, how the emerging Phoenix Arts District hopes to plant the seeds of artistic creativity in young entrepreneurs. You can join the conversation on air by calling 904-549-2937. You can also email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. It's all ahead this hour after the day's news.
Live from NPR News, I'm Corva Coleman. The FBI says it has executed a search warrant at Ambassador John Bolton's home outside Washington, D.C. Bolton was the former national security advisor to President Trump in his first term. He is now a fierce Trump critic. The world's leading authority on hunger has confirmed there is famine in northern Gaza. Israel rejects the findings. NPR's Ruth Sherlock tells us Israel claims the report overlooks Israeli data on relief aid deliveries.
The part of the Israeli military that oversees aid, known as COGAT, claims the report by UN-backed experts is, quote, unprofessional. It says it ignores Israeli data on deliveries of aid into Gaza and overlooks a recent increase in food supplies by a US and Israeli-backed group, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. The Israeli position on the humanitarian situation in Gaza, though, remains at odds with leading aid groups. Over 100 aid organizations recently said increasingly restrictive Israeli regulation on their operations in Gaza is leaving millions of dollars worth of food, medicine, water and shelter items stranded in warehouses while Palestinians starve. Ruth Sherlock, NPR News.
The State Department says it is constantly reviewing all U.S. visa holders, and now it has revoked many more than the Biden administration did. NPR's Michelle Kellerman has more.
In a statement, a spokesman says that the department is continuously vetting the more than 55 million foreigners who currently hold valid visas. The Trump administration has revoked 2 times the number of visas as compared to last year, 4 times the number of student visas. So far this year, the State Department has revoked more than 6,000 student visas for a range of reasons, from traffic violations and visa overstays to alleged support for terrorism. Michelle Kellerman, NPR News, the State Department.
The Justice Department has hired an attorney who represented people accused of violent acts during the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. The attorney has compared the defendants' prosecutions to the Holocaust. NPR's Tom Dreisbach prepared this report.
Before he joined the Department of Justice, Jonathan Gross served as a defense attorney for multiple violent January 6th defendants. An NPR review of his media appearances and social media posts found that he advocated for reparations for Capitol riot defendants, shared conspiracy theories about the attack, and in a YouTube interview, he compared the prosecutions to the Nazi genocide.
These prosecutors are evil people. They will put you on a cattle car to Auschwitz without that an eye.
Gross joined the Justice Department in June, and sources tell NPR he is working on the administration's investigation into the alleged weaponization of law enforcement. Tom Dreisbach, NPR News.
And you're listening to NPR News.
Good morning. I'm Michelle Corum. The Salvation Army of Northeast Florida is the recipient of a $300,000 grant from Dolores Barr Weaver Legacy Funds. Salvation Army Area Commander Major Keith Biggers says the 3-year grant will go toward homeless services.
We appreciate the past support and ongoing support of our partners, friends, and donors, and always opportunities to support us with the donations of food, donations of financial gifts, as well as volunteering.
Biggers says the money will be used primarily for the Hopes Crossing Transitional Housing Program for men and the Red Shield Lodge for single women and those with children. Both are in the Tower Centers of Hope in La Villa. And residents there get meals, budgeting help, educational support, spiritual counseling, transportation assistance, and job placement. The Salvation Army has been serving the homeless and others in Jacksonville since 1891. Drivers are going to face another weekend of lane and ramp closures on the Buckman Bridge due to an ongoing FDOT construction project. 2 lanes of I-295 South are going to close tonight at 10 o'clock through 4 o'clock Monday morning as the crews replace metal joints. Similar work over recent weekends has seen southbound traffic back up to Collins Road exit, so drivers will need to pay attention to the detour signs. 80% chance of rain today with a high of 90 degrees. This is WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Visit St. Pete, Clearwater, Florida, where white sand beaches meet the arts, from the Dali Museum to more than 500 public murals. More at visitspc.com. This is NPR.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided in part by Baptist Health and North Florida TPO.
Opinions expressed on the First Coast Connect Week in Review are those of our panelists and do not reflect the views of WJCT News 89.9.
Good morning. I'm Ann Schindler, and it's Friday, which means it's time for our First Coast Week in Review here on First Coast Connect. Among our topics, a deeper dive into who's actually taking tickets to city-owned venues shows it's not the mayor. Jacksonville City Council members defend proposed cuts to healthcare spending and plan to hire their own attorney. The city's finance chair gets his own financial house in order after resolving 2 years of unpaid taxes. And new reports about conversations among elected officials add to concerns about possible Sunshine Law violations. Here to talk about all of that and more, I am joined by Tricia Booker, author and journalism professor at the University of North Florida. Hi, Tricia.
Good morning, Ann.
Jake Stofan, city politics reporter at Action News Jax. Good morning.
Good morning. Good to be back.
And Mike Mendenhall, City Hall reporter and associate editor at Jacksonville Today. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Ann. Good to be here.
It is good to be here with all of you. Tricia, before we get to the other headlines we just talked about, I want to just take a minute and recognize the death of a local icon, a historian and an advocate for good governance, Dr. Jim Crooks. Can you tell us a little bit for those of us who are listening that may not have a strong memory of Dr. Crooks, kind of the role he played here in Jacksonville, who he was?
Dr. Crooks was, as my friend Tim Gilmore says, the consummate historian. But he wasn't just a historian. He had this unique ability to create narrative out of history, to make us understand it better. He wrote 2 amazing books that chronicled the history of how Jacksonville came to be what it is. He was also a civil rights activist. He understood the role that that society played in helping to shape who we are. He was a much beloved professor as well, and the father of Sarah Crooks, who is a much beloved artist in Jacksonville, very ecologically minded. He was just a really important chronicler of Jacksonville history.
I feel like, too, in his book on consolidation, he really did try to, advance the conversation about where we got with that and the failings, that he was, at the forefront of the conversation, trying to reckon with some of the unfulfilled promises of consolidation.
Yeah, he was also one of the first people to chronicle the effect that South Georgia had on North Florida, and North Florida becoming known as the southernmost city in Georgia, the effect that people coming down from Georgia had on the changing shape of Jacksonville.
Yeah, well, Dr. Jim Crooks is, a recognized legend from the area, and obviously our condolences to his family. Just kind of wanted to talk about that for a minute.
Absolutely.
Jake, I want to turn to a story that you broke last night, looking at who used the most comp tickets at city-owned venues. Tell us a little bit, if you will. You found out who the biggest ticket takers are, but I want to dial back and just remind us how we got to this point. Why did the tickets become an issue in the first place?
Well, according to Councilmember Ron Salem and Council President Kevin Carrico, there was a change in how the administration was going to be doling out tickets that, basically they would have to go request them from the administration. I think they kind of viewed that as like a bit of a, what's the term? Like a stop gap, or giving the mayor's office sort of the authority to dictate whether a city council member was going to get a ticket or not. So in response, they filed a bill that basically said we're going to split all the tickets 50-50 between council and the mayor's office. And then obviously the optics of that didn't really look that great, because it's like, why are you guys fighting so hard over these perks just because you're going to have to ask the mayor's office for permission to get them or whatever. And then Carrico kind of reverse track, even though he had asked Salem to look into this issue and draft some legislation. He stepped in, said, I'm going to file the Deegan Amendment, which is going to say that city officials can't use any of these tickets for their personal benefit at all. So, of course, the next question is, well, who is using them? And the mayor did not use a single one over the past 2 years personally. Her staff members did, but still city council and their council aides were 70% of all the tickets that were requested over the past 2 years. And I believe it was 812 in total over 2 years. I don't know the specific value of every single one of those tickets, but I imagine it's probably over at least $1 million. So, we're at a time where city council is cutting certain healthcare programs, or reducing the budget for Meals on Wheels compared to last year. They're trying to shrink the budget. Meanwhile, they're kind of squabbling over these bennies that they're getting, as some people call them.
Yeah, and I know that you did some interviews, including with Dr. Mike Bender, who said it is a little bit high school feeling. But so the original bill was going to kind of split these even Steven, so that the council didn't have to go, with its hat in its hand and ask for tickets from the mayor's office. And then the Deegan Amendment was proposed by Kevin Carrico, and that was going to basically say no tickets for anybody anymore. We're going to kind of get rid of this practice of city officials being able to get these comps to city venues.
Yeah, the Deegan Amendment, the council members would still, the tickets would still be there. The city's contractually sort of obligated to receive them. So council members and the mayor's office would still be able to request them. Presumably council aides or employees within the mayor's office could still use them personally, but elected officials would not be able to personally use the tickets.
Gotcha.
And that's one of the big questions, is who received all these tickets? Because, a lot of the council members requested these for constituents. The mayor's office, we request them for constituents. But we have no way of seeing who actually got them. Was it donors? Was it lobbyists? Was it, politically connected friends? And I think that, maybe there's some good that will come of all this, which Bender noted yesterday, in that it seems like the mayor's office and the council at this point are kind of on the same page, that there needs to be some more transparency at the very least, because it doesn't look good when you see somebody requesting 20 tickets to TPC or a Sharks game or whatever, and you have no idea who got them.
Well, I thought it was interesting that you chose to request, where the tickets were going. It doesn't seem like the council had made that a similar ask and trying to determine whether this was a problem or not. I mean, because you note that the council president named his amendment after the mayor. It seemed to implicate her in some way as a using these tickets or availing herself of these tickets to an egregious extent.
Yeah, clearly, obviously not the case based on the stats. And, when I asked Carrico yesterday, after looking at this, do you think the Deegan Amendment is still an appropriate name? And more or less, he said, it speaks for itself. Not sure what that means.
Yeah. Mike, there's a lot of city news happening right now, and we're going to get to a lot of it in later on in the program. But is this kind of sucking the oxygen out of the room in some ways? I mean, and are other council members concerned that this conversation is being, so dominant when there's so many other important issues that they're trying to address?
I mean, anytime that you involve the Jacksonville Jaguars in a conversation with City Council, I think it does kind of take a lot of oxygen out of the room. I mean, as Jake said, that right now the City Council is doing budget hearings on Mayor Deegan's proposed $2 billion budget, and there's been cuts to healthcare programs, Meals on Wheels, the regional council, Northeast Florida Regional Council lost their budget. So there's a lot of other things that they are considering that could really impact the future of both their constituents, but then also too just the region as a whole. And this does kind of draw more attention to something that is a little more inside baseball, and a topic that I think a lot of voters probably would not be thrilled that is getting the limelight. So I mean, as far as other council members are concerned, one of the reasons that that's given for these kind of tickets is that the city of Jacksonville gives a lot of money to have the Jacksonville Jaguars in town. We're currently in a $1.4 billion stadium renovation deal. Shad Khan has received millions of dollars in incentives to build the Four Seasons Hotel across the street from the stadium, as well as an office building. So some of it is almost like it's like, well, we're giving all this money to the Jaguars, so we should be on the ground and we should be there with them. It also, the games bring in, they bring in folks from other from large companies, and other and other dignitaries and those kind of things, where it gives an opportunity for relationship building for city officials as well, and to showcase and show off the city. So although they are definitely perks, and I'm sure that the city council members and whoever they're giving their tickets to are having a great time at the game, there is another reason for it, which, if they lose that, could make it more difficult, especially for individual city council members who don't have like the clout or the platform of the mayor's office to be involved in those kind of conversations when they revolve around the Jaguars game.
Trisha, I want to ask you your thoughts about this. I mean, on some level, it's tickets, it's events. It maybe isn't the biggest city obligation, but city officials, whether they're giving these tickets away to constituents to reward them for something that they've done in the community, to thank them for something they've done, or whether they're giving them to lobbyists, I mean, we don't know. But they also, I think, have a presence sometimes that is important, just being part of the community. What do you think about just their use of them personally?
Well, I think, first of all, I think it's worth noting that Donna Deegan said that she has her own set of tickets, that she has season tickets to the Jaguars that she personally pays for. So the idea that she is benefiting from this personally is just dumb. As a non-sports fan, it seems to me ridiculous, the idea that that the mayor of Jacksonville can't go to a Jaguars game on the city's dime to see what's happening. As Mike said, it's silly. We're giving $500 million to the Jaguars, and we're going to play head games about a city official who goes to a Jaguars game. It's my understanding that the city that the Jaguars have a contractual obligation to give some tickets to the city. Now, certainly there should be more transparency, and there should be more of a record being kept of who gets those tickets. That seems kind of like a no-brainer. Who gets the tickets? That seems like somebody should be keeping that record. But the whole idea that this is becoming an issue, that an amendment is being named after a mayor who nobody can find has done anything wrong in this regard, it just seems very middle school.
I mean, it's not just Jaguars tickets, Jake. You found people were going to all kinds of events, Justin Timberlake concerts, a Shrek
the musical. That's my favorite.
Yeah.
I had to put that one in there.
Yeah. And there was, a variety of events. So some of them you could see, yes, city officials probably certainly have to make FaceTime at some events. Others, perhaps they're just using for their own entertainment. Do you anticipate that there's going to be changes made to this now that all of this reporting has brought this information to light?
I mean, at this point, you would think there has to be, because they've made such an issue of it, and now it's all kind of in the light. And I've gotten a sense that there are certain council members who are not very happy about this conversation having been brought up in the first place.
Well, let me ask you about one in particular, because I mean, you're taking a head count and you're naming names about who actually is taking the most tickets. The number one ticket requester was Terrence Freeman, former city council president. The second, Reggie Gaffney Jr., who has been on the council less time than Terrence Freeman, and then Jacoby Pittman was the third, depending on how you crunch the numbers, but that was for the last 2 years.
Yeah, and Pittman and Gaffney both sent statements more or less saying, hey, the vast majority of our tickets were requested for constituents. We represent underserved areas, and we want to make sure that we're able to sort of spread the wealth, help people, attend things that maybe they otherwise wouldn't be able to. Freeman didn't give that kind of response. He more or less said, blessed to have a large family and have attended events over the past few years.
Yeah.
So, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but it didn't sound like he was saying that these are going to constituents. But
and so are folks that find themselves caught in this debate that was not of their making, feeling aggrieved that this has become an issue that now they're kind of at front and center in?
There was a lot of text messages between me and council members going back and forth yesterday. Certain council members didn't want to weigh in on it at all. Others, were kind of, I don't want to say panicking, but they're trying to get, go back and look, where did all these tickets go? I need to, make sure that this is right. There was an additional spreadsheet that was sent out by council that had some edits to it. But it didn't impact any of the top 3 ticket takers, as we were calling them. Although I guess it's more fair to say ticket requesters, but it doesn't have the same roll off the tongue alliteration.
Gotcha.
To it, so.
Gotcha. Well, we're going to obviously keep an eye on the progress on that. Good reporting. If you're just joining us, I am talking to Tricia Booker, Jake Stofan, and Mike Mendenhall about the week's headlines. You can join our conversation at 904-549-2937. You can email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. You can also watch our live stream right now on Facebook or the WJCT YouTube channel. We've got a call from Alan on the south side. Good morning, Alan. Go ahead.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for taking my call, Ann. Hey, I've got a question. This partly pertains to knowing who gets these tickets, but also I'm thinking, at least back in my day, there would have been income tax implications. They would have had to pay income tax on the gift if it's over a certain amount. And this kind of ties back in even with the Clarence Thomas. You remember the blue ha-ha, where, him getting $100,000 or $200,000 from a billionaire. And they never said anything about the income tax implications. So I was hoping maybe somebody could comment on that or throw that into the fray.
Yeah, I mean, Florida doesn't have an income tax. I don't know quite how that would impact their assets. They're not super valuable tickets, I think. But Mike, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I mean, I'm like Jake. I'm not really sure what the exact value of the tickets are and what the tax implications would be. But honestly, I'm not sure. But I don't think they would be high dollar value enough that they would have to report them. But
I would think probably the most expensive tickets on there are a couple $100.
They do have to report if they're getting gifts from lobbyists and other outside agencies, individuals. But I would guess since this is sort of part of a city
it's kind
arrangement, it may not.
In theory, any city employee can request the tickets. I'm sure there's some level of deference given to elected officials, maybe get some sort of priority treatment there, but to
Alan's point, I mean, I guess just there are optics to citizens, ordinary citizens, Tricia, who might have concerns about city officials getting anything extra. They feel like, well, if you're a public servant, you kind of signed up for this gig. It's not supposed to be a glamour role, and you shouldn't be getting anything extra.
No, maybe not, but certainly there are going to be opportunities for city officials to attend events, and maybe they need to do so free of charge just for optics. But certainly there should be a record of that. Certainly they need to be reporting on whether it's in an annual report or they're reporting to the city attorney, these bennies, as you called them. There should be a record of who is getting what and when.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to shift gears and talk about another issue that is before City Council, probably a lot graver matter, has to do with cutting some of the mayor's healthcare proposals. This week, the Duval Medical Society president spoke to the City Council. The head also wrote an open letter saying that the cut to HealthLink Jacksonville in particular is of great concern to the local medical community. Mike, this is something that you've been following closely. Can you catch us up, first of all, on why the Medical Society, Duval County Medical Society, is even weighing in on this?
Yeah, so the HealthLink Jax program is a telehealth program it's run by the city, but it's also in a public-private partnership with Telescope Health. So essentially, it's a 24/7 telemedicine line for folks that are uninsured, so they can have access to a primary care doctor for non-emergency purposes. And the whole idea is that this takes folks out of the emergency room that don't necessarily need to go there. So when a lot of times if somebody's uninsured, they go into the emergency room because that's their only resort. So it takes pressure and load off of our emergency rooms at our local medical system hospitals. And the medical community has been in full support of it, and they say it's working. They say that it's diverted over 1,300 people from the ERs in the Jacksonville area. And the cost of the program in Mayor Deegan's proposed budget is $2.18 million. So it's a high sounding number, but in a budget of $2 billion, most people are arguing that it's just kind of a drop in the bucket to help that many people. And so the medical community is arguing too that cutting these programs are going to actually end up costing the taxpayers money. Not only because of the emergency room in the ER, but then a lot of times these visits will require ambulance service. So that also puts pressure on the Jacksonville Fire and Rescue Department. So that's why the Medical Society weighed in. The meeting you were talking about, Ann, was actually was hosted by City Council member Michael Boylan. He ran a committee a few years ago on critical care and quality of life in Jacksonville, and this telehealth program was actually one of the proposals that came out of that final study that they did. And so it's something that he's pretty passionate about, and he is a Republican, which makes it interesting because it kind of puts him at odds with some of the folks on his own party who sit on the City Council Finance Committee who want to cut this program. And essentially, the cut is one of a myriad of cuts that they're working on to try to be able to lower the property tax millage rate. Which is going to cost the city about $13 million in the current proposal.
And so they are going to be looking for these cuts. I mean, Tricia, one of the arguments that was made is to Mike's point, they say it reduced ER visits by 1,300 individuals, or perhaps multiple visits for one individual, but that the goal of this program is to kind of intervene, prevent that from happening, and presumably lower costs. But the council is saying that this is unnecessary or in some cases duplicative.
I have deja vu all over again. I did a story for Folio Weekly about this 30 years ago about how emergency rooms and fire rescue is becoming the new primary care. Study after study after study has shown that when people don't have access to medical care, they use the ER. They call fire rescue. I have a friend who works in the ER, and she said most of her patients are uninsured as it is. There is absolutely no doubt that when people don't have access to medical care, and sometimes it's literally just a need for antibiotics because someone has strep, but they're going to end up in the ER, which is going to tax the city, but it also taxes people who really need the ER. It backs up ER. It backs up doctor and patient care. It just, to me, is a no-brainer. And like Mike said, it's $2 million. It sounds like a lot, but it is just such a small part of the budget to provide people with humane treatment when they're not well. It just really seems to me to be a no-brainer.
The council hasn't been presented, Jake, though, with any numbers from the mayor's office, for instance, saying that this would be the cost if we don't fund this necessarily, as far as I know. I mean, in terms of trying to put a dollar figure on the flip side of that expense if it were to be cut.
I can't think of an actual dollar figure that's been placed on the value of losing this. But I will say I was in the council chamber when they were debating this like 2 weeks ago, I think it was. And the argument that I was hearing for cutting this was essentially, these hospitals are getting hundreds of millions of dollars in state and federal, support. Obviously, the hospitals get money from the local government as well. If this truly is such a big cost savings, why can't the hospitals find the $2 million to save the money, essentially? That's kind of the rationale behind why they're targeting this, from what I understood, based on that whole debate, is essentially it is a fairly small amount. We need to cut some money. It's shown that it's effective. So if the hospitals value it, then maybe the hospitals need to pick up the tab, essentially.
Well, maybe they need to ask the hospitals. I mean, it just seems like it just seems like short-sighted thinking to go ahead. I think that's a great point. If that's what they want to do, well, let's make that proposal rather than just eliminating a program that has been, by most accounts, really successful.
One thing that's interesting about this conversation, Mike, particularly the meeting that Jake was referencing in the Finance Committee where they were talking about this, they were also talking about cutting back on the mayor's proposed budget when it comes to meal deliveries for seniors. And, that's it's almost like a third rail. I know that some people have found it surprising that that's even being discussed as a possible cut, Meals on Wheels. But, this is something that the council has been very strenuous on defending. And I want to just take a listen if we can. Raul Arias, who's the chair of the Finance Committee, was saying, basically the reason this looks like a cut is because the mayor proposed a pilot program last year and wanted this additional funding. And now if we don't continue to fund it, we sort of have a gun to our head. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
Now the mayor, because she wanted to create a pilot program, she's essentially shoving this down our throats to tell us we have to refund it again. That, to me, I feel like we're boxed in now because the narrative will be that we don't take care of the seniors. Just like Mr. Josh Hicks the other day said that we don't take care of, the affordable housing issues because he went on Facebook to post about it, and now the media's all over it. That's the narrative that the administration is pushing when we start pushing back on things. But the fact of the matter is, we do take care of our seniors. We take care of our children. We take care of our animals at the shelter. We take care of everybody.
So again, that's Raul Arias. He said that he doesn't want to be saddled with this negative narrative. He really does believe that they're taking care of their constituents and the people in the city, Mike.
Yeah, whenever you launch a pilot program to expand, existing services, if that expansion, if that expansion works or it covers more people, it does become very difficult to end up to scale back. If you don't want to continue the pilot, and you might still be, supporting, the same level of people you were on a prior budget. But there's also possibly an increased need. It's interesting. It kind of goes back to an argument that was presented at that meeting with Councilmember Boylan the other day. So one of the additional cuts to the proposed Deegan budget is to Jax Care Connect. Jax Care Connect is a service that will help people link up with the Duval County Safety Net clinics to help them get free service. And the Deegan administration wanted to increase the city's contribution to that program, which has been widely popular, by $250,000. And the City Council, Finance Committee decided to reduce that to $500,000, keeping it equal with the year before. But one of the arguments that those clinics are saying is the federal money, the state money is not going to be as readily available. We're seeing cuts to Medicaid, where we're seeing reductions in subsidies to the Affordable Care Act, which are going to make it more difficult for people to get insurance. It'll increase the uninsured, and so we're gonna see even more people either in need of that ER care or needing our services in order to mitigate that ER care. So even if you're keeping that budget steady from the year prior, you're still a lot of the professionals in the medical industry are saying we're going to see an increased need. So we may need 2.1 million now for this telehealth program, but if we see additional cuts, we're going to need more.
We are talking about all the week's headlines with our panel of journalists, and you're welcome to join our conversation by calling 904-549-2937 or emailing firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. We've got a call from Linda in Mandarin. Good morning, Linda. Go ahead.
Good morning. I think the through line, and I would like to share that we need to, at every point that city council makes a concession, so the optics of what it looks like, somebody said yesterday, frat boys fighting over free tickets, are the same people that are asking for, people to go back on the wait list for Meals on Wheels, and people who are uninsured. Is it because it isn't their constituents that are lacking health care? The optics needs to be in their face, because it seems like right now politics and not public servants are fine with the optics of being mean boys, of saying, well, we want ours and you find their way to get yours. If they want it to be, see if there's no an option to actually sell the football tickets and actually fund these programs. Would they do that? Would they be willing to sacrifice giving to a constituents, but to fund many constituents' meals? Just the thought of elderly people not being able to get that one meal a day from Meal on Wheels, it's abhorrent. It really sucks, and it really makes our city council people look really small, really small.
Linda, thank you for your comments. I mean, I do just want to put the price tag on it. So this would essentially be cutting the program as it exists right now by $1.9 million, almost $2 million. It would take it from $2.37 million to about $468,000. And so it would basically take funding away for 1,900 seniors. I want to ask you a little bit about the makeup of the Finance Committee, Jake, because this, the makeup of some of these committees has been something you've reported on, and the control of that conversation. There really is just one Democrat on the Finance Committee. That's Jacoby Pittman. She has a long history of serving the community, particularly elderly people in the community, through the Clara White Mission. It's, something that is part of her DNA very much. And she spoke about cutting Meals on Wheels. She urged people not to do it. But it is the conversation that is limited in the Finance Committee, given the makeup. You're not hearing many voices, or even people like Michael Boylan, who might have, quality of life comments about these cuts. It tends to be more driven by people who are somewhat, more aligned with a different perspective.
Yeah, the odds are certainly stacked in favor of sort of the council president, sort of the Republican, the harder, right line Republican council members on the Finance Committee. And, with Meals on Wheels, with the telehealth program, with some of the affordable housing programs, it's really not surprising to see the Finance Committee going through this budget kind of with an axe. The real question is going to be when the budget is presented to the full council, when you do have some of those more moderate Republicans, when you have all the Democrats on council able to weigh in, are those cuts going to be able to survive that level of scrutiny? Because on some of these programs, there's even been a little bit of disagreement among those more sort of traditional, further right Republicans. Everybody has their own sort of connection to these programs, or, whether it's benefiting their constituents in their area. Obviously, things are going in one direction right now, but I would not be shocked if we see some of this stuff end up in the final budget.
Mike, we talked about the Meals on Wheels a little bit earlier this week and got some emails from people who want to weigh in. What is their ability to participate at this point in these conversations as a member of the public?
Well, you can always email any city council member, to make sure you weigh in. But there are also the budget will go before in a public hearing before it's voted on by the final city council. There's also going to be, I believe, 2 meetings before there's a final budget that's passed. So there's also there's just your standard public comment section as well, when anybody can go up and talk about any issue they want to. So that would be a time when the public could weigh in on if there's the budget as a whole, or if there's particular programs that they want to see in the budget, or that have been cut that they want reinstated.
And subscribing to the Jacksonville Today newsletter is actually a pretty good way to track. They usually have kind of at the bottom of the newsletter meetings that are happening today that you can get involved in, and so the budget will be part of those notices as well.
Yes, and typically we have the the city council, the full city council meetings, any type of city council committee meeting that has issues on it that are important to the public at large. We usually highlight those in the Jax Today newsletter.
Tricia. I just want to push back on the idea that the media is taking the mayor's slanted narrative and running with it. I think that the media is looking at the possible effects of these cuts, and then speaking to the people who would be affected from it, and telling their stories. I mean, that's not creating a narrative. That's just telling the narrative that's there. And I think it's really important that's literally their job to explain in real people terms how these cuts could have an effect.
We've got a call from Charles on the west side. Good morning, Charles. Go ahead.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. You know, I'm 68, and I'm a caregiver for an 89-year-old mom, and I do all the cooking, but should I not be around and she's all by herself, this would be a critical program for her. So if I wanted to comment at one of said meetings, would they automatically dismiss me out of hand because I'm voicing a pro opinion for continuing the program, And, our council members' propensity for cruelty just astounds me, but that was my question.
Thanks,
you.
Charles. I mean, I think like any member of the public, you would be given your 3 minutes to talk at a public comments section. And, that is a situation, Mike, that did come up in terms of that visit. Some people were speaking and saying, this is a hot meal that's 5 days a week, and that's very important for people who may not have proper nutrition or be able to prepare meals or go anywhere to receive a meal. But that FaceTime visit is almost as important as the meal, because it is often, people's one interaction with the outside world or with someone that is there to care for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's a social boost for that individual who's getting that meal. It gives them, like you said, it gives them interaction with one of their, their neighbors or their neighbor, whoever is, the volunteer or the staffer that's providing that meal. It's also a wellness check too, because a lot of the folks that receive Meals on Wheels, they will have either a chronic illness or they're elderly, so it's just a general wellness check as well. It's a similar argument actually that you hear about cutting rural post offices, like that sometimes that's the only interaction that those folks have with the outside world is when the post officer comes to deliver the mail. So
interesting. I do want to move on to a different topic. Jake, this is something also that you reported on earlier this week, and that has to do with the council chair's own business finances. It was surprising to me, and I guess it was also a surprise to the finance chair himself, Raul Arias. Explain to us what it was that you reported on and what happened.
I'll give credit where credit's due. This was a Ben Becker find. I was assigned to cover it, so I just want to make sure he gets credit for that. Basically, somehow Ben came across 2 properties that were previously owned by Arias, who used to own Mambo's. That company's been handed over to a family member at this point. But
a great restaurant when it was.
I have not eaten there.
It's really good. Great black beans and rice is my memory.
So in 2023 and 2024 on these properties, the property tax had not been paid. It was just sitting there. So Becker reached out to Arias, and Arias was also, as you mentioned, he was quite shocked to find that he had not paid his property taxes. And, he called his bank, and basically his story is, you pay your property taxes for your home through your escrow account. You kind of just pay your mortgage every month, and you know that your property taxes are being paid through that account. He had never owned commercial property prior to this, sort of his first experience with it, and didn't realize that he had to manually authorize the withdrawal or the expenditure of those property taxes to the county. So he realized all the money was just sitting in an account, and then released the funds and got it dealt with. Obviously the optics on this one are pretty apparent. He's the finance chair. He's getting the city's budget in order, and I guess we all have things to learn.
Yeah. And I mean, it was not a small amount. It was $70,000 in back taxes for these 2 properties for a 2-year period. And as you say, he paid them promptly. I think he kind of told you, look, I'm human. I learned a lesson the hard way.
Hey, I've learned that if you get an extension on your taxes, that costs you money, and you'll get a letter from the IRS if you don't remember to pay it. So, tax system's confusing, but generally we do have faith that our elected leaders maybe know a little bit more about it than we do. So, yeah, that one kind of speaks for itself.
Yeah. Mike, I wanted to ask you because, Jake did reach out to the mayor on this, and I don't know if she was, at a time when things are pretty tense, I thought she maybe showed a little restraint because she just sort of refrained from commenting on, what might have been kind of a opportunity to take a dig at the finance chair.
Oh yeah, I think if you watch how the mayor's office and the mayor has interacted with city council members who have been critical of her, she appears to really be picking her battles. Really, she's deciding, like, she usually only comments on issues that have a direct impact on residents, or maybe the reputation of the city. So that seems to be where that, just from my own observations, where she kind of tends to comment, and she usually won't comment on somebody else's personal issues.
Interesting. Another matter that is before City Council that might be gaining a little traction is the question of kind of offline conversations, and that grew somewhat this week with the conversation around those tickets that we were talking about earlier. There had been some previous concerns that there were text messages going back and forth with members of the city council and the council president just to make sure he was okay with moving a piece of legislation. Then this week, council member Ron Salem basically said he'd been asked by the council president to draft this legislation regarding the tickets. He specifically told our colleagues at News4Jax that he'd been asked to draft legislation to split the tickets evenly between the council and the mayor. And so there is now a request to the state attorney to look into whether they are violating open government laws, government in the sunshine laws. We're actually going to have the attorney that filed that request with the state attorney's office on Tuesday's program, so we'll hear more about it then. But is this significant? I think, Jake, the council is saying this is, often more of a procedural kind of matter as opposed to substantive, matters before the council. And is there a distinction there that needs to be made?
Well, when it comes to the drafting of the ticket legislation, I believe there are sort of ways of going about that, without violating the Sunshine Law. I wish I could tell you what it is, but obviously it happens all the time, right? There's priority legislation filed on behalf of, council president frequently that's, carried by other council members. Well, how do they know to carry it? Somehow that message is communicated, if it's directly, obviously, that's going to be violative of the Sunshine Law. But there may be some sort of more inside baseball ways of going about that in a way that sort of skirts it. In terms of the text messages, that was something where it was actually, the reason why we know about it is because it was announced during the meeting, right? Council member Mike Gay was like, just got a text from Carrico. He says we're good to go. That one, is there a difference between procedural conversations versus substantive or policy conversations? I've heard varying opinions, but I don't see anything specifically written in the Sunshine Law that makes that distinction. There was a big investigation into city council members over the Sunshine Law back in 2018, and that was just over a council member allegedly handing another council member a business card with some names written on it. And that was a year-long investigation. So that was mostly also digging into Democrats on council. So in fairness, one would think if you're going to look into that complaint, this is at least a complaint worth looking into. If it's good for me, it's good for everybody. You gotta keep it consistent. So I'll be curious to see what the state attorney does, because obviously she's opened some investigations on some more, conservative issues, the gun registry, things like that. So is she willing to also look into members of her own party? It'll be interesting to see.
And Tricia, seems like an issue that has to emerge kind of periodically, perhaps just to remind everybody the importance of the Sunshine Law, whether or not this turns out to be anything bigger than it appears.
I don't think it's bigger than it appears. Obviously, the Sunshine Law has not been able to keep up with the technology of modern communication. I think the Sunshine Law is being violated all the time. It's kind of like all the trees are falling in the forest, but nobody's hearing them. And when something like this comes up, I think it reminds us that elected officials are communicating with each other, and it's only occasionally coming into the public notice. I think that this has become a statewide issue.
Well, don't forget the legislature, the state legislature, state senators, House representatives. The Sunshine Law does not
Doesn't
apply
to them.
They
Right?
they text each other. They get the votes, where they need to be. There's never a surprise on a legislative committee in Tallahassee.
That's right. All right. Well, we're going to have to leave it there. Trisha Booker, Mike Mendenhall, Jake Stofan, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Ann.
Thanks, Ann.
Thank you.
All right. Up next, planting the seeds of creativity in young entrepreneurs. We'll tell you about the Bloom Lab. Thanks.
The Florida Theater presents The Psychology of Cults, a live event exploring how cults form, why people join, and what it takes to leave. Wednesday, October 8th at 8 p.m. Information at floridatheater.com. Terrell Hogan Law.
I'm Wayne Hogan. One texter call can wreck it all. Learn more through distracted driving presentations for teens and the workforce. Arrive alive. Let's end distracted driving.
More at terrellhoganlaw.com. Life South Community Blood Centers, providing blood and patient services to the local hospitals, serving patients in this community. Donating blood with Life South helps save lives. More at lifesouth.org to find a blood drive near you.
How families can help kids build real-life connection and navigate difficult emotions. I'm Dr. Joe Servin. Join me tomorrow at 4 for What's Health Got to Do with It, only on WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville.
Florida is on the front lines of the fight for food between climate and culture. The Sunshine State's orange crop is a small fraction of what it was just a few decades ago, and the state was the first to ban lab-grown meat. On the next Florida Roundup, what does this mean for the race to feed ourselves? Have you changed your diet because of the climate? How do you think about carbohydrates and a carbon footprint? Email us, radio@thefloridaroundup.org. I'm Tom Hudson. Then join us Friday noon until 1.
More states send National Guard troops to the Capitol at President Trump's behest. On the next Friday News Roundup, the latest in the federalization of D.C., plus it's tit for tat on redistricting between Texas and California, and the president tries to take down mail-in voting. The News Roundup, next time on 1A.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. Well, from growing to making to selling, a youth mentoring project is taking root in the Phoenix Jax neighborhood. Here to tell us about it, the newly funded program is Emily Moody, Executive Director of the nonprofit Friends of Phoenix Jax. Hi, Emily.
Hey, Ann, how are you?
Good. It's nice to see you again.
Thanks for having us back to talk about this amazing initiative.
I'm excited about it. I'm excited about learning about it. This is kind of an interesting undertaking. It mixes agriculture, arts, and entrepreneurial skills. Tell us what the vision is and how this came about.
So we were really fortunate to be able to work with Senator Tracy Davis and the co-sponsor on the bill, Wyman Duggan, and they put in appropriation for this arts and agriculture program for our nonprofit Phoenix Jax, or Friends of Phoenix Jax. And so we were really excited and surprised that we passed all of the budgeting, and we're looking to launch it by the end of the year. But we've really taken shape now and working on all the programming and different aspects of what it will entail. It's called Bloom Lab, and like you said, it's arts, agriculture, and entrepreneurship. And the focus is on 6th through 12th graders in Duval County, We are giving special preference to youth that are going to be in the 32206 zip code, which is our zip code that Phoenix Jax is located in, just because we really want to continue our mission of uplifting the community that's right there around our district. But we are really looking forward to launching this because it's going to be really transformational for these youth, I think.
And just for people who don't know Phoenix Jax, it's kind of in the north part of the Springfield neighborhood ish.
Yes, so we're located at mainly along the 14th Street corridor between Main Street and Liberty Street. We have 8.3 acres. We're a regenerative development. So this is a long-term project for us in terms of creating adaptive reuse buildings that we already are in at the Emerald Station. We have the Liberty building opening up later this year, but there's lots of housing plans in the works as well. And this is a long-term project, 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, and so some of the projects that are underway are these, cool old warehouses that are being transformed into spaces for artists and entrepreneurs of various kinds. And then there's going to be new buildings, and it's, aligning with the Emerald Trail as well. So this project, tell us a little bit about what is the agriculture component when kids participate? What is the entrepreneurial component? Because it's pretty neat. There's going to be a market they can participate in.
Yes, so what we're doing is we're framing it out into 8-week cohort sessions for these youth, so we can really focus on smaller groups, but having a bigger impact on more youth throughout the entire year of the program. After they graduate from their program of 8 weeks, then that's when we launch the market, and they will help us, obviously, with adult mentoring too, but they will really be driving the marketing and the vendor management. They will be selling their art that they make, their products that they produce, and
so they'll be growing, things like herbs and vegetables and fruits and stuff?
Yes, obviously that'll take a little bit more time because it's going to take time to get that infrastructure in place, but since we have so many open properties right now on our land, we're able to do a full urban agriculture program. We have a PUD on our entire property, which does allow us for that agriculture component.
It's kind of like a zoning code, planning and development, yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
so that covers that piece, and we're able to do that urban ag right there inside of our properties.
And then they'll also be making art, is that right? And learning about how to make art and learning how to market things.
Yes, so we have about 20 artists right now in our Legacy Studios building, which is located within our district. And my plan is to really hire the artists within our community, the farmers within our community, the entrepreneurs to help have these mentoring workshops and really keep that money within our community and build it up from there. So the artists will be doing a whole piece on teaching the kids how to create commercial art and sell it and market it.
And there'll also be some performance art elements. This is kind of an after-school program, though. Is that right?
It is. It'll be 3 days a week after school. And like I said, for the 8 weeks. So we have partnered up with La Villa's, an amazing community partner of ours, and they're really interested in having their students apply. But the application is not open yet. We hope to open it by later this fall. We are actually still waiting to get our marching orders from the Department of Education. So things are moving really quickly. We're ready to get our programming in place, and we're ready to launch it as soon as we can get our funding in place.
It's pretty amazing, too, the bipartisan support that this has generated. You have a Democratic Senator, Tracy Davis, a Republican Representative, Wyman Duggan, but you've also got support from our Democratic mayor, our Republican governor. They're all backing this program and the money that it's receiving at the state level.
Yes, it's very true. We were fortunate to be able to have Senator Davis put the bill in, and the support from Wyman Duggan, her counter on in the House side. And it's really party lines. It doesn't matter. This is about the youth, and I think
Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.